In this video lesson, we are going to look at quadratic equations and more specifically how to solve them using the quadratic formula. Now, in this example, we have a very straightforward quadratic equation to solve. And what the quadratic formula is useful for is especially when you have a quadratic equation that can't factorize. In this case, it can, but we'll just go ahead and use the quadratic formula to solve it. Now, as you can see, it is in standard form, and with standard form I mean ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0, where a, b, and c represents the values or the constant and the coefficients. So that means that a's value is 1, b's value is negative 6, and c's value is negative 7. So the quadratic formula looks like this. It's x equals to negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. And this formula is used a lot, especially in matric, where in the algebra question of your matric paper, they would normally give you an equation and say, solve for this equation and leave your answer to 2 decimal places, and then you can immediately use a quadratic formula, because this can sometimes give you decimal places. Alright, now basically what we're going to do is simply substitute a, b, and c into our formula and then just simplify. Alright, so then we have b's value, negative 6. Now, very, very important, especially when you're substituting in a negative value, is to use brackets. Always substitute your numbers in with brackets, and I'll show you actually where a lot of people make mistakes. It's over here, where if you're substituting negative 6 without the brackets, you're going to calculate this, and this answer will give you negative 36. But the correct way is to put it in with brackets, because it's the entire number squared. Then it will give you a positive 36. Alright, so that's just a very common mistake. Then a's is 1 and c is negative 7. Okay, and then that's over 2 and a is 1. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. Knowing this formula is important, and also to know it off by heart, although in matric it does appear on the formula sheet though, but it is good to know it off by heart. And also when you're doing these sums, write down the formula first and then start substituting in, because that also helps you to memorize it easier. Okay, now you can, if you want to, just type in everything exactly like this into the calculator. But I, for myself, like to just add in another step where I simplify all the simple things. Like we know that minus and minus is a plus, so that's just 6. And then plus and minus, and then I know negative 6 squared is 36, so that's 36. And then minus, actually plus, I look at the signs next, then minus and a minus is a plus, and then 4 times 7 is 28. Okay, and then that is over just 2. So this is much quicker to put into the calculator than all of those brackets and everything. Alright, then we type that in, so we have 6. Okay, now another thing, this plus and minus, a quadratic equation has 2 roots or 2 answers. And this plus and minus, it represents, one root represents 6 plus the square root, and the other root represents 6 minus. So we're just going to start, you can start with any one. Now you're just going to start with plus 6 plus, and then the square root of 36 plus 28 over 2. And then we have 7. So x is equal to 7, or x is equal to, then we don't have to retype everything unless you really want to, but then we just go and change that into a negative, and we have negative 1. Alright, so that is the basic steps of using the quadratic formula. And then in this example, just to give you another example, so we're going to start off by writing x equals to minus b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Okay, then we substitute in. So we have a being 5, b is negative 1, and c is negative 8. Okay, so minus negative 1 plus or minus, and then negative 1 squared minus 4. A is 5 and c is negative 8. Okay, and then that's all over 2 times by 5. Right, let's simplify this. This is just 1, and then plus or minus. This also is just 1, and then a minus and a minus is a plus, and then we can actually just multiply that on the calculator. We can say 4 times 5 times 8, and that's equal to 160. So this is 160 right there, and then over 10. Okay, so let's put that on the calculator. Then x is equal to, so we have 1 plus 161 over 10, and that's equal to, so now we're gonna, this is in its simplest third form. So if I press SD, it gives it in its decimal places. So let's say they asked us to round it off to 2 decimal places, then this would be 1,37. So 1,37. Or x is equal to, then we can just replace the plus with a minus and press SD, and the answer there is negative 1,17. Okay, now before we end off, I just want to add one scenario that can happen, is this value, this b squared minus 4ac, that can actually be a negative. And when that happens, it's non-real, or it's actually imaginary. But in our case, you would just say it has no solution, because you can't have a negative in a square root.